Hey everyone, I'm Henry. Today I'm making homemade pie crust. When you make a pie crust at home, it can just come out so much better than a prepared crust. So I've used this recipe several times. It works really well for me. I use a little bit less butter than some other recipes and 2 eggs instead of 1 egg. This makes 2 crusts. And the secret with making this is to keep the dough cold because the butter will melt and it will get all gooey. The other secret is you don't have to make it perfectly consistent. It can be flaky and shaggy and have large areas of butter in it. It doesn't all have to be totally mixed. So first of all, 2 2/3 cups of flour, and I fluff up the flour with a knife because flour can get compacted. 1, 2, and 2/3. Perfect. And then 1½ sticks of unsalted butter. And I cut these at an angle. You can cut them in cubes, but I cut them in strips that are about 1/4 inch thick. And that mashes into the dough much better. So I can show you that. So try to cut it at an angle. So like that, or thinner. And this butter is cold, just taken out of the fridge. It's amazing how much butter is in crust. As I said, I have reduced it a little bit. Save the wrappers to grease the pan. And 1½ sticks. And 2 eggs, beaten, poured in the middle. Now, a lot of people will use their hands to form this. However, that warms up the butter, and so my great idea is to use some sort of masher. So this is a potato masher, and it's made of steel, so it does not conduct heat to the dough. And there you hear my cat. So you just mash this all in. It's nice to have a cold granite top to work on. And then some cold water, about 1/4 cup. It does not take much. And put it in gradually. And it will slowly come together. it's starting to come together. You can use a pastry scraper or a knife to just bring it back to the middle. So this takes quite a bit of pressure to press down. A little bit more water. Okay. And the knife is good to scrape it off the granite. Darn it. So after I make this, I will put it into the fridge for about a half hour. I'm going to add maybe a half teaspoon to a teaspoon of salt because this is for chicken pot pie or savory dish. If this was for apple pie or Asian pear pie, I would add a teaspoon of sugar maybe. Of course, the salt is optional. So it's starting to come together. It's very shaggy at this point. And I like to scrape up with mostly flour on the bottom. And we're almost done. This freezes really well, so while I'm making a mess of this, I'm going to make 2 more and store them in the freezer. And I store them as 5-inch, 6-inch frisbee shapes, so they're easier to roll out instead of storing them as a ball. So I will wrap these in plastic wrap, cling wrap. I will make 2 out of these. So for this part, I will use my hands. And I'll put some flour on my hands. All right, so yeah, that is perfect. Now you can see it's very shaggy. It comes apart fairly easy. That's okay. You really can't get it any more clingy or into one than that. And it's okay if you see butter chunks in it. It does not have to be 100% mixed. So I form a ball and then a frisbee. So 5 inches across. Mix in any of the flour you want into the middle, mix it in. And that's it. What makes this work so good is that I use the potato masher to mix it so it doesn't warm up. This is still cool to the touch. They're about the same. Just wrap them up real quick and put them in the fridge. Again, for rolling them out, you want them cooler. So there you go. It wasn't too long, was it? It's manageable if you know to keep it cool. So I am making homemade pie crust, and this is really so much better than store-bought. And I have reduced the butter a little bit. Instead of 2 whole sticks, 1.5, and I've increased the egg content from 1 egg to 2 eggs. So fluff up the flour, make it nice and fluffy, because flour can get compacted down by its own weight. So fluffed flour, 1, 2, and 2/3. I just eyeball the 2/3. One and a half sticks of butter. It's already been warming up. It's easier to cut than when I made the previous batch. So these are basically double wrapped. So that's one wrap, and that's a second wrap. That's done. It's a good job to get done.